Pre-built gaming PCs pretty much always get overlooked or frowned upon by the avid gaming PC community because of their lack of versatility. However, the Omen Obelisk and the Aurora R11 are actually one of the most versatile pre-built PCs available and are also extremely good value. I mean, how else would you find a PC with an RTX 3070 in it for less than $3,000? Short answer is you wouldn't, which is why these PCs are seriously worth considering. But before you consider buying one, you ought to know which one is better. Let's look at the specifications first. Now, it is important to understand that the Alienware Aurora R11 comes with a lot of different specification variations. You can get Intel or Ryzen CPUs. You can also go for an Intel i3 processor or all the way up to Intel i9, depending on your budget. I will be using the Intel Core i7 model for this comparison since the Omen only has one model and that has an i7, so it's only fair. Obviously, if compared to the i9 version, then it would blow the Omen out of the water. But that is $2,000 more expensive, so yeah. The Alienware Aurora R11 is fitted with a 10th generation Intel Core i7 CPU, an Nvidia GTX 3070, 16GB of DDR4 RAM, and a 512GB SSD card. If you heard any of that right, then you'll know that that level of hardware makes for incredible performance in games. You'll be able to hit 4K at 60 FPS with most games absolutely problem-free. The Omen, on the other hand, is fitted with the 9th Gen Intel Core i7, an RTX 2070 Super, 16GB of DDR4 RAM, and 256GB of SSD. As you can see, the two PCs have similar hardware, but the Omen's is slightly more outdated than the Aurora's. That means that the Aurora is slightly better in some ways, like with the CPU. Both PCs do have Intel Core i7s, but the difference is that the Aurora has the 10th gen version, whereas the Omen has the 9th gen version. That honestly doesn't make a massive difference, except that the 10th gen version has 0.2 GHz more processing speed, but the Aurora has the better CPU nonetheless. This same kind of pattern follows with the GPU as well, because the Aurora has the new RTX 3070, which is an absolute monster of a GPU. The Omen went for an alternative route by using the RTX 2070 Super instead. Both these GPUs are actually very similar in capabilities by virtue of the fact that the 2070 in the Omen is the Super Edition, not just the normal 2070. This means that despite the 3070 being the newer card, it's actually only 15% faster than the 2070 Super. Annoyingly though, the 2070 Super on its own is actually more expensive than the 3070. So why HP decided to use that card in their PC, I'm honestly not sure. The Aurora definitely wins when it comes to GPUs as well, but suffice to say, both cards will be able to put out 4K at a sustainable FPS. As for the RAM, well, both PCs use the exact same RAM, so there's zero competition in that aspect. But I can say 16GB is a decent amount and will definitely get those games running smoothly in 4K. SSD is a different story though, because both PCs kind of lack the storage in their SSDs. The Aurora has a 512GB, while the Omen has just half of that. If you plan to game on either, then you're gonna want an upgrade because not only will both of those fill up super fast, but as they get more and more filled up by those bigger games, the PC will start to slow down. So although, yes, the Aurora does have more SSD space than the Omen, neither actually have enough regardless, which means no matter which PC you get, you're gonna end up having to upgrade. So I really wouldn't say that Aurora is better just because it has more space, because realistically, any less than 825GB isn't enough. So to conclude on the specifications, it is pretty obvious that the Aurora does have the better hardware, but only just. A lot of the Aurora specs are only slightly better than the Omen's, which is why I don't really think the Aurora's $2,350 price tag is justified, considering it's a whole $540 more expensive than the Omen. However, there's more to a PC than just the specs. Let's take a look at both the PCs as objects. Both look good because they're high-end gaming PCs, but which looks better and which is more functional? Well, with the Aurora, you can easily tell it's a pre-built gaming PC because of its unique case. Annoyingly though, the design of it makes it predisposed to have odd ventilation placement, which means it can get a little hot after a while, which may affect performance. The case does look really cool though, and is a lot easier to dismantle than it looks. However, due to the Omen's more conventional rectangular shape, that one is definitely much easier to take apart and upgrade. Having said that though, the Aurora is still upgradable. It's just less convenient due to the unorthodox shape. Regardless though, you won't end up stuck with a PC that slowly becomes more and more inferior no matter which PC you pick. In terms of what looks better though, I personally think that the Omen would appeal to a wider audience just because it looks more like a PC, and it also has a glass panel on one side which lets you see the red RGB interior. On the other hand, the issue with the aesthetic of the Aurora is that while it does look cool and alien-like, it just looks a little like a Dyson air filter, which can be a little off-putting. Though suffice to say that this PC, from the front, looks super cool in the dark. But then again, so does the Omen, so it's gonna be up to you what you prefer in that sense. So when it comes to aesthetic and functionality, it's clear the Omen definitely takes the cake. I would say that the only thing the Aurora has over the Omen here is that it has a few extra ports. So, which PC is better overall? With all things considered, I have to say the Omen seems to be the better value PC. It may not have as good specifications, but definitely isn't far off and frankly won't make a massive difference within the games. The Omen is also far more versatile and its simple and ergonomic case design. And considering the Omen is $540 cheaper than the Aurora, it definitely is the better PC in overall value. So if you want a high-end, pre-built gaming PC that will last you a generation, then the HP Omen Obelisk is the one for you. Anyway, what did you think? Let me know in the comments and like and subscribe.